Guess what I'm sipping?
Vodka.
Ew.
Close. Just kidding.
Gin?
Scotch.
Oh, nice.
All these Scotch master classes got me on a little kick.
A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Gold Eagle Jake.
And today we are talking about artificial or manufactured scarcity in the bourbon market, which Dan says is a conspiracy theory, and we'll try and get to the bottom of it.
Why don't you open up, Dan?
Well, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not wearing the right hat. Like I should have brought tin foil. Like I don't know.
So before we jump into that, I do just want to say a big thanks to Rush Creek for having us out last weekend. It was a blast. Hopefully we can get back out there again soon. If you're in Illinois, go check them out. They're in Harvard. Everything we tried there was awesome. I was really impressed. So absolutely go see them, say hi, tell them we sent you.
Yeah, without having them around, we can kind of speak freely now, even though they're going to listen to this. But I was very impressed. Like, you think of a distillery out in Harvard, Illinois. I had never really heard too much about it. I was kind of just expecting like a little pop-up job, but it's a pretty legit tap room. It's a pretty big facility. Being only 6 years old, I think they got a ton of room for growth and potential.
Yeah.
To be fair, you've said that about every Illinois distillery, though, because you thought we were
Who else, though?
You said we were a little. You thought we were a little barn beside the road. So
did I say that?
That's the first thing you said. Like, I had no idea I have no idea your operation would be this big. It's about.
I think that was just messing with you. But yeah, you guys are definitely. You guys are definitely bigger than Rush Creek, but I've heard of Whiskey Acres.
You just shit all over Illinois distilleries. That's all you do. We're not from Kentucky. We get it, Jay. God.
The complete opposite. I'm the one pushing local. So Whiskey Acres, everybody's heard of. So you expect to go out there and see something.
Jesus Christ.
If you want
Starting off well.
So if you haven't yet watched that episode from last week, it's broken into two parts just because we were there for like an hour and a half. But somewhere in there, there's a 10% off code embedded in there that Jake gives out. So when Rush Creek gets available at Gold Eagle, you can get 10% off your first bottle. So yeah, make sure you listen to the episode and get that code.
Should be this upcoming week.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So keep an eye out. But yeah. Artificial scarcity.
Right, yeah.
Scarcity.
Get into it. So what brought this up why I thought it was interesting was because I saw this particular reel and the next reel that I'm going to show where these guys talk about it, and the account is that one dude, Ryan. He's pretty big in the online whiskey community. He does silent whiskey reviews, which is why he's kind of known for. But he's doing these like little whiskey talk videos as well. So we'll watch these real quick and then we'll talk about it.
I'm telling you blame the secondary, not the distiller.
Just get ready for the hook. Here it comes. Welcome to Whiskey Talk. My name is Ryan. In case you don't know me, I know a few things about whiskey. I'm very lucky I had a hat nearby, or you would have actually seen my hair today. Where I do not disagree with Jones and Man, I think the secondary market 100% has made distillers think we could start charging more money to get what's ours. And where we also agree, I think that distilleries should be able to charge whatever they want in order to combat secondary pricing. And where companies like Wild Turkey bring out their Master's Keep and charge $250 to $300 for it, Woodford Reserve and all that jazz, this does not make up for what Buffalo Trace is currently doing. So for legal purposes, the next upcoming part's just an opinion. Essentially, what Wild Turkey is doing is giving you limited releases that they really want people to try. Same thing with a majority of all the other whiskey providers. But what other distilleries, who will remain nameless, are doing is they're just putting out the same stuff with different labels. Like the one we're always talking about. Since 2020, that distillery has put out 18 different labels for the same 3 mash bills. So they're not doing it because of the secondary, they're causing the secondary. Gray markets exist when limited production also exists. But we also do it to ourselves, so whatever. Bye.
All right. So then this video that's coming up next, he breaks down that the multi-label argument a little bit more. And this is kind of what I want us to focus on because I think it's an interesting concept. And I think it's kind of a little controversial. So,
with this concept, what is the end game for the distillery?
I can tell you exactly what's in it for the distillery. Just give me a second because I have an explanation. And for the sake of the explanation, we're going to start off very small, and I'm going to be the distillery. Hi, my name is Bison Walking Path. And welcome to Bison Walking Path Distillery, where every month we produce 2 barrels of whiskey, which gives us 200 bottles of whiskey each. So a total of 400 bottles per month. Now, for our 400 customers, we can give them 1 bottle a month, so they're very, very happy. And for the sake of argument, we're not going to ramp up or anything like that. But now we're keen. We know that every single month our 400 customers come in and buy them, but how do we get them to buy more and buy for more expensive? Well, that's easy. We're going to take those 2 barrels and now we're going to split them in half and create 2 different labels. So instead of having 400 total bottles, we're only going to have 200 of bottle A and 200 of bottle B. And our 400 customers are now going to have to fight over how they're going to be able to get one or both of those bottles. Because we want to look like we're more popular than we actually are. Now, this is where the ramp up comes in, because the more and more you feel like you can't get that bottle, there's a lot of us out there that they really want it. So because people can't find our stuff, it makes it more desirable, which means that people will continue to look for our stuff. Thank you for coming to Bison Walking Path.
So I think it's actually a pretty decently well thought out argument. And I'm not going to criticize him directly because I ranted about that in a past episode. So let's talk about it. So I think that idea that bottling under multiple labels with the same mash bill in order to create scarcity for each individual label, I think in theory makes sense. However, I would argue in practice, it doesn't actually apply just because of the amount of alternatives in the market, especially now more than ever. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts is on that.
Well, I don't know. I would think because there's so many alternatives, you almost need to do something like that just to kind of get more attention towards you and get people like excited about your brand again. I mean, we know, this is just a number off the top of my head, but I would say like 75% of whiskey is marketing. It's it's how nice the bottle is, how nice the label looks. You get a couple people to give it a really good review, and then all of a sudden everybody wants your whiskey. Right. So splitting up 2 barrels and creating 2 different labels, essentially all you're doing is marketing, and then you're creating a bigger demand for those bottles. Dan.
Yeah, I like the label system. The big distilleries that have been around forever, I mean, that's what they all do, is they do a certain couple mash bills very well, and they create a ton of products off that because we know the factors of aging and everything add a lot to the flavor. So I don't think by using different labels on the same mash bill is creating artificial scarcity. I think it's using it to create different products when you know you have a mash bill that works.
No, I agree. I totally agree. I'm not saying that's creating artificial scarcity. I think creating different labels with good product or with the same mash bill just shows you know what you're doing as a distiller and a blender. And you I can use Buffalo Trace for an example. They're a great example because they do have a ton of labels with 3 mash bills, and they know if they put a barrel on the 6th floor of this warehouse, it's going to become Eagle Rare. They know if they put it on the 1st floor of this warehouse over here, it's going to become E.H. Taylor, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But I think to dive even deeper into that, and an example on like really creating scarcity is the whole Weller line. I mean, 5 years ago we had Weller Reserve, we had Weller 12, we had Weller 107, which used to all be available on the shelf. And then Weller gets a huge hype around it. Then they came out with Full Proof, they came out with CYPB, they came out with Single Barrel, and it's kind of confusing to the customer, and it's also like obviously the exact same thing, just bottled at a different proof, or maybe
Yep.
aged slightly longer, whatever. But for the most part, they're all 6 to 8 year bourbons, just
Yeah.
bottled at whatever proof the distillery chooses at that time.
Yeah, in that example, like the CYPB is something that's obviously more scarce and it's more of just a social project to keep people engaged with the distillery. I mean that bottle itself is all marketing. Like come on our website, tell us how you want your bourbon to taste, and we'll take the consensus and pick one out. And I think everyone has the trend of, well, we all need to have a single barrel now. So there's things like that, and that's created part of it. Some of it is like they're having some more of these labels, which is adding to a little bit of scarcity because it's more or less taking away from their stock that they're going to use for Weller 12, and it's going to take a while to get that stock for Weller 12 built up. So now Weller 12 has a scarcity problem because they're using stuff that in a few years could be Weller 12 is now being used for a single barrel that is more of a marketing ploy than anything else.
Right. Get the money now and get more money.
Right.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Put gold foil on the top and put a cork in it instead of a screw cap and charge an extra $20. But I mean, like, it's annoying sometimes, the scarcity, but it's also a really good thing at the same time because it kind of pulls more people into it. And I think as a distillery, especially right now where we are in the whiskey and the American whiskey world, you need to create some scarcity to get people to go towards your brand. There's just so much out there, so many distilleries, so many new products. If you don't, capture a piece of that market right now, you're going to be stuck with a lot of bourbon in 5-10 years that you probably can't sell.
Yep.
So what about on the other end? So like the example that comes to mind is what Ryan brought up, the Wild Turkey Master's Keep, where there's a purposeful curation of a very limited, whatever it is, single barrel or a very small blend or some kind of finishing style or whatever it is that's kept purposefully very small and limited and then sold for an exorbitant amount of money. And, we're seeing lots of distilleries doing this. Like I'm drinking one of them right now, Jack 10. I would be amazed if Jack Daniels couldn't make this a daily product just because of the amount of shit that they have in warehouses.
Right.
But they choose to have it be a, once a year release where like each store only gets like maybe 3 bottles. So I think it's a different kind of manufactured scarcity, but I would argue that in the Buffalo Trace model, where you're taking, your couple mash bills and splitting it up, at least you're keeping the pricing reasonable. In this other end of the spectrum, you're trying to squeeze as much value out of the product as you possibly can.
Well,
So they
I
go
have.
ahead, Dan.
I've never been a big fan of the last few years. We've seen it more and more, and I know I've mentioned it once or twice of all the limited releases. And some people are having 6 or 7 or 8 limited releases a year anymore, and it's like, I mean, it partly plays into us because we're dumb and we rush out to buy it yet and pay all the money that they're asking for. Like that's give Buffalo Trace credit. A lot of their stuff that people can't find is still really cheap retail. But then they come out with this Prohibition stuff or the
The
Daniel Weller,
Eagle Rare 25 year,
the double, yeah,
which is like $10,000 MSRP.
yeah. But
But
that's a hand blown glass bottle, Jake.
yeah,
I mean,
but meanwhile the antique collection 17-year Eagle Rare is still $120.
right?
Mhm.
It's I have more of an issue with the limited release stuff coming out, and it's all just building hype and charging lots and lots of money. Now, like I said, I'm a big Buffalo Trace fan. I think the new stuff, like the Prohibition, this other stuff they're coming out with, is completely dumb and completely off brand for what they're doing. But the limited releases are getting too extreme, and that's where I think the distilleries are really getting their money that they're losing from the secondary market.
Which I
Yeah,
think
so
I think is a good thing. Like I'd rather have the distillery make the money than some chump
Yeah.
that's going around buying and flipping bottles. And it also, I mean, it does make it a little more accessible for people. If they're charging 300 versus 50 and then immediately hitting secondary. So I mean, I like
Mhm.
I like the fact that they're charging more, but and you I mean, people want what they don't have, right? So you kind of need to create a little scarcity to get some demand for some of these things. If birthday bourbon was sitting on the shelf anytime you walked in a liquor store, you probably wouldn't buy it. You would say, "Oh, $150 for a 12-year 100 proof bourbon. Not today. I'm gonna go find something else."
Mhm.
And even just last week, I started seeing some of this change. So we're not too far away from production catching up with some of the demand
Mm-hmm.
for aging. And a perfect
Yep.
example, I saw this last week. I was out at a lot of liquor stores doing some staff training on our products. I walked into probably about a dozen that had boxes upon boxes of
Heaven
Heaven Hill
Hill.
7-year bonded
Mhm.
sitting there untouched. And it was a year ago. They kept it in the back. And now there's boxes there. There's not even a limit one sign anywhere because they have all this product in and it's just sitting there. Now it's like, oh, this I can get now all the time. I don't need to buy it
Mm-hmm.
now. And it's just kind of the opposite side of the coin is we want stuff because it's rare.
Well,
And like, I know you probably used to have people that come in all the time trying to find 7-year Heaven Hill.
I mean,
And
all
now
the
this we
time.
come in, it's going
Yeah.
to sit.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, there was just someone today who like came in, walked through the aisle, and he was like, "Do you guys have any allocated bourbon?" And I just looked at him, and this is what I said. I was like, "Well, half the shelf out here is allocated. If you really want, we can grab a shopping cart and I can fill it up for you with allocated
Yeah.
bourbon." And like, what are you looking for? People just want what they can't have, and shame on all
Mhm.
of us for not seeing this coming. And I know some of us did with the Heaven Hill because they had a 6-year bottled in bond that was available in
Mhm.
Kentucky. It was widely available. It was $20 on the shelf. They discontinued that and immediately came out with the 7-year bottled in bond, and now they're charging 50. And people were buying it up like crazy. And now that year went by and their stock has aged, they have 7-year bottled in bond everywhere.
Mhm. Well, and the same thing happened with Henry McKenna too. Although that was triggered by gold medal
Minnick.
in
It's
and yeah,
still.
fucking
I
Fred.
think we're still a ways away from McKenna sitting on the shelf, but yes, the price
Yeah,
like
yep.
doubled. Um, and that was just a couple good reviews in a San Francisco Spirit double gold winner. Even though it's a single
Mhm.
barrel and every bottle you grab is going to be different, but it
Mhm.
created that demand, it created that scarcity, and now people are chasing it down. Even though it's a good bourbon, but it's just in kind of like a everyday. There's plenty of good stuff on the shelf that will beat it out in a blind
Yeah.
tasting.
Especially in that price range.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. It pains me a little bit to talk this way about the greatest distillery in the world, but you know.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about scarcity stuff too and limited releases. I think they're one of the biggest offenders with Parker's Heritage.
But that's their one. Well, Old
Well, they're
Fitz,
one, but then
Parker's
they have all their
Heritage,
barrel proof
and
releases, and then they
Elijah
got their
18 are like their three that are the most difficult to find. I mean, a lot of other distilleries have like 15 unattainable
It's
whiskeys that they put out every year.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know?
it's also it's also kind of hard to make that argument because like Parker's Heritage came out before when it first came out. Like you could walk into Heaven Hill and buy a bottle.
right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a lot of the stuff came out before the whole boom and demand and secondary market. So at the time, it was an expensive whiskey that people didn't want to spend $200 on a bottle. But now all of a sudden, it's rare and bourbon's booming, and people will happily pay 5 times that amount.
Yeah.
And one thing what we're not talking about with scarcity, because I can tell you from our experience, and I can tell you from every distillery in the world, this isn't like the diamond industry. Distilleries aren't sitting on warehouses upon warehouses of whiskeys that people are trying to get that they're not selling because they want to create scarcity for it. No one's sitting right now on whiskey that they know they can make a crap ton of money on. Like, it's not like the diamond exchange where there's someone that has a bazillion dollars worth of diamonds in a vault in a basement somewhere and saying, "Oh, nope, there's only this amount of diamonds left because we're not putting these out." It's
Yeah.
whiskeys aren't trying to create, especially their normal products and things, that they're not trying to hold back this stuff from buyers.
We
No,
will get to
I
that
think
point
it's
probably though.
yeah, it could. Especially
I'm lying.
as
We have a
these-
warehouse with like 1,000 cases of blue popcorn.
Yeah.
We're just trying to create hype for it. Sorry.
I mean, by the time a lot of these distilleries come online with the stuff they're churning out now, where like almost every major distillery has like doubled production within like the last few years. We could see a point where the the demand just isn't there to meet the supply in like 8-10 years.
I mean, I
Just
think we
because
will
there's
for
so
sure.
much.
I think we'll be getting there soon
We are kind
on
of,
some
and
of this stuff.
I hate to say it, but there's a lot of customers that I've talked to lately, and I know they're at this point, but they're like, yeah, I just have so much bourbon. If I were to drink every single day for the rest of my life, I still wouldn't be able to drink all my bourbon.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Yet I still buy bottles every week and look for what's new, and I think we're like just we've only seen the tip of the iceberg on what bourbon is out there and available compared to what's to come because of how many more
There's a lot of
distilleries
stuff
there
that
are and how much more they're distilling.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I just don't even care about anymore. Specifically because I know in a few years, if I really want that Weller antique or whatever, it's gonna be there. So there's no reason for me to go waste my time trying to find it now. I can be patient, and I've got plenty to keep me occupied until then.
Yeah, I think Buffalo Trace is like the best example for that. Like we talked about this before. There's a reason why they're not raising their prices because they just know in 5 or 10 years they're gonna have so much Eagle Rare, Taylor, Weller. There's so much of
Well,
that.
I think it's pronounced Wellers.
Wellers,
I think
sorry.
it's Wellers. Yeah, I think it's the S at the end. I forgot.
There's going to be so much of that, and if they didn't know that, they would raise their prices now, because 5 years from now they'd shoot themselves in the foot if they doubled their prices now, because then it really would sit. Nobody would buy it. It'd be everywhere. I think they already know it's going to be everywhere in 5 or 10 years,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so yeah. So here's
So I
another.
guess, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to bring.
So I was just gonna say, why is it that like I'll use Heaven Hill because it's the best. But how is it that Heaven Hill can keep Elijah Craig small batch on the shelf, but Buffalo Trace can't keep Buffalo Trace on the shelf?
Because I think there's more hype around Buffalo Trace as a straight bourbon than there is around Elijah Craig. I think Elijah Craig still has some of that older man vibe to it that some people think it's
Do
always
you
been on
think
the
it's
shelf.
truly a demand
I
problem?
think it's because you can find Elijah Craig everywhere. And you can't find Buffalo Trace on the shelf everywhere. And yes, there is a lot of hype around Buffalo Trace. The distillery as a whole, anything that comes out of Buffalo Trace, there's a lot of hype around it. They've mastered the marketing game. Like people who don't even drink bourbon say, "Oh, Buffalo Trace is the best."
Mm-hmm.
Well, and part of it just kind of the cascade down effect is if you ask any bourbon person what they hear the best bourbon in the world is, a lot of people are going to say Pappy. Okay, well, I can't get Pappy. Well, that's made by Buffalo Trace. Well, Weller's a weeded mash bill. That's the same as Pappy. Well, I can't get Weller. Okay, well, what else can I get from Buffalo Trace? Oh, I can get Buffalo Trace. And that's why I think you see like the ancient ages are harder to find for even a bottom shelf bourbon. Some of the benchmark.
Yeah.
I mean, benchmark I see all the time, but like you can't find benchmark foolproof in Illinois very often.
Well, they don't distribute to Illinois.
Oh, don't they?
Which is odd. Like all those, the foolproof, bonded, like all those different benchmarks. I know they go to Indiana and obviously Kentucky. I don't think or know that they go anywhere else besides that.
Okay.
I've heard from people they're on the shelf almost everywhere in Indiana.
Just another reason why Illinois sucks.
But like a year or two ago, Benchmark was it wasn't on allocation, but it was like constantly out of stock. Like we couldn't keep Benchmark on the shelf, and it's not like people were buying it up. I mean, those were like your everyday people who were just buying handles of it to mix with whatever ginger ale or Coke. But like we couldn't, they couldn't keep up with Benchmark for a little bit. That's obviously fixed. They've caught up with Sazerac Rye. That's people used to freak out for that. Now that's on the shelf. So it's only a matter of time before all these other things are on the shelf too.
I have been seeing more and more Buffalo Trace on the shelf at grocery stores and stuff as well too.
Yeah,
I think that's starting to get.
We're a little different because we have a huge whiskey following. Like we still can't keep Heaven Hill at all on the shelf. We got our shipment in, I think we got like 7 or 8 cases, and we sold out within 2 days. And Buffalo Trace too. We get like 6 cases a month of Buffalo Trace, and it's gone within 2 days. Just regular Buffalo Trace.
Which, to be fair, I think is still a great mix. I think that's still one of the better prices for something you can drink neat or make a great cocktail.
Yeah, I mean it's a great bourbon. Yeah, it's a great bourbon for the age, for the price, and for the flavor. It's phenomenal. There's not a ton of better options out there, but there are just as good, some better options out there depending on who you ask. But yeah, I mean that's
like Elijah Craig.
So. Well, Elijah Craig beat Blanton's in our blind, and that was a pretty easy win, eh, Dan?
I wasn't there, so I couldn't vote.
It was pretty easy. It was a landslide of 25 votes to 23.
That sounds about right.
No, I'm just kidding. It was actually it was more of a difference than that. It was actually like probably 28 to 17, something like that. But either way, so like that's real scarcity, and the point that I was going to bring out is like true artificial scarcity. An example of that, I'm going to use barrel craft as an example, because last time I talked to my barrel rep, what he told me was for all of their limited releases or like seasonal releases, they're cutting the batch size in half just to create more scarcity. And that was his exact words.
Going forward, yeah. Like weren't trying to hide everything, wasn't trying to hide anything. They're just like straight up like, yeah, we're gonna, when we come out with like Amberana finishes, or when we come out with like Tale of Two Islands, typically what we did in the past for batch sizes, we're cutting those in half going forward.
because he's like, we want to
Well,
bring
that
the
was
demand back to barrel.
it's interesting because I remember when Armida dropped, and that was supposed to be like a limited thing initially,
Mm-hmm.
but it's everywhere still. And
Well,
like I know that it kind of became a regular thing, but like I never saw it go out of stock anywhere. And they were
so
even saying at one point, like, "Oh, we're gonna like this is it. Like, it's not coming back," and like it never went anywhere. So,
so they actually just recently said it's now going to be an annual release. So it's just
Okay.
going to come out in the fall, and I know that's actually true because my distributor rep is like, yeah, we have X amount of cases left, and Barrel said they're not giving us any more until next fall. Um,
okay,
so that's another. Yes, they're definitely trying to create some scarcity with that by making it an annual release instead of once on the shelf all the time, which
mm-hmm.
I think is a good move on their part.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it's different with blenders too, right? Because you're not having to make it. You're going, you're
Right.
finding barrels, you're putting them
Mm-hmm.
together. So it's a lot different. You can make what batch sizes you want. Um, I like barrel stuff a lot, but I think the problem that I'm starting to see with barrel is you walk into a store and you see 12 different bottles of barrel.
Mm-hmm.
There's, if you go into any liquor store, they usually have 3 or 4 or 5 or more different batches, which I know they're getting rid of. But then they have, okay, now the Amberon is out. Okay, now the Tale of Two Isles is out. Now they have the seagrass, the dovetail. It's I think it's becoming too much for people, and I think that's maybe why that they're deciding to cut back. Is it's just system overload of I just want a barrel whiskey, and now I got to pick from 12 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm gonna be
how do I know I
upset
picked the
if
right
the
one?
I'm gonna be upset though if they start like doubling the price on their limited bottle
Well, they won't though because
releases.
they cut back
They did
on
the
their they cut
opposite.
back. Yeah, they
Yeah, they
cut
did
back
the
their pricing on
opposite.
gray.
The gray labels went from 250 to 150
Oh, really? Oh, that's
MSRP. Yeah,
surprising.
yeah, they're all like, I mean, go to goldeagle.com, search barrel gray, and they're all 150 now.
Wow.
Which is, yeah, I mean, so like the I wanted to bring up that example of them saying they're going to cut the batch sizes in half because I think um, that's like true artificial scarcity. Like they don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
that. They
Yeah.
can make more, but they choose to create more demand for it. And I as much as you hate to see it because we want the best whiskeys to be accessible, I think it's a good move on their part because you with how many distilleries there are out there now and how many brands and bourbons, you kind of need to pull people into your brand specifically and get them hooked in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I said it earlier, bourbon drinkers especially, but everybody wants what they can't have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you see something that's limit one, you're gonna jump on it. You're gonna buy it. Without it, you don't need to taste it. If it's limit one, oh, I got to grab it before it's gone.
Yep. I don't know anything
Yep.
about that either.
I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's also kind of good, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, I
it's
mean,
making
that's
the whole industry more interesting and it's pulling more people in.
right, and that's the current marketplace for whiskey and spirits is eh, not as much other spirits, but mostly whiskey. Um, is that like there is a lot of urgency around releases and drops and things like that because a lot of this stuff is limited or if not totally allocated. And it's but like we've said, we beat this horse to death. All that's going to change soon. And that's when I think it'll be super interesting because I think a lot of these distilleries are going to have to really adapt. And like a lot
They're
of the
gonna,
stuff that they do now or is not going to fly anymore.
yeah, they're gonna have to change their whole marketing and business plan.
Mm-hmm.
We'll know what's happening when the secondary starts to drop, right? That'll be the easiest tell
Yep.
of something's changing.
One thing I wanted to note, and this, it's interesting to me. So I just, going through day-to-day life, I'm seeing Buffalo Trace partner with more and more different brands outside of the whiskey space. I have like a beard balm that's Buffalo Trace branded. Wrangler just dropped a clothing line collaboration with Buffalo Trace. We
I
talked
got
about Chris
soaps.
Stapleton partnering with them on a whiskey. I think that's whiskey related, but there's just like a shitload of stuff that they're getting their hands into, and I wonder if that's their preparation for the time when the entire Weller line will be on the shelf in a few years at
I
all
don't think
times.
it's necessarily preparation. I think it's get as much money as you can right now. Because like even Wolverine has a work boot that you can buy for $400
Yep.
that has Pappy barrels in the sole. Like, and it's an
It's
extra. I mean, it's an expensive work boot itself. It's one of their better work boots. It's already like $300 some, but they're getting an extra $50 or $60 because Buffalo Trace is giving them a sliver of a Pappy barrel to throw in the sole.
yeah, I think it's a combination of both. Like, they're taking advantage of no, taking advantage is not the right word, but they're
No,
running with what they have, which is good on them. Any business is going to do that. And they're also kind of getting ready and trying to get their name out there to more and more people because they know they just have a ton of whiskey. I would love to sit in a room with some bottles of bourbon with the person who's behind Buffalo Trace's marketing and business strategy plan with all of their whiskeys. Like, genius.
Jake, are
It's
you just
Yeah.
mad that there's not an Elijah Craig beard balm?
A little bit.
maybe.
I would totally get it.
but they've mastered the marketing, and everyone knows about their core whiskeys and sprints out of their house anytime they see them available.
Well, that and I mean they got their name so big that they can use their name to get into more stuff. So even like Weller
Right.
12 is already hard enough to find, and then Yellowstone is one of the biggest shows, and then all of a sudden Weller 12 starts showing up in Yellowstone. Okay, well now you got people
And
that
Bullet,
were not even
Bullet
drinking
got,
bourbon.
got
But
kicked off the show in favor of Weller.
yeah,
They were all drinking Bullet in season 1, and then that disappeared.
yeah. So I mean, good on them. I mean, you can't blame a company for marketing, but I mean, I think part of the reason why Buffalo Trace all their stuff is harder is because they've done really well in marketing, and they've gotten the
They
hype
have.
up, and their hype is spread, and that the hype makes it harder to find. So it's not, and again, that's not the distillery holding product back to make it tougher to find. That's just them being good marketing.
You think
So-
they were like, oh shit, we got a ton of Weller barrels ready to go. We can't let all this go out to the market. Let's create a single barrel. Let's create a full proof. Let's create a CYPB. And now we're not going to have this stuff in the market. People are going to just go crazy for it and buy it all up.
Yeah. I will say, though, to be fair, the last couple releases of CYPB have been really, really good.
I gave up on it after the first release.
Yeah, you and your butterscotch bullshit.
So good. So good.
You can just buy those little hard candies that grandmas have. That's the same
Werther's?
thing.
I eat those too. The old Werther's original? Hell yeah.
All right. Well, any other thoughts on Scarcity in general?
I don't know. I think it's. The limited release thing bothers me, but it's not like. Don't ever blame a distillery when their main products aren't on shelves because they're not trying to hold their main products back. The thing that I'm more frustrated with and will be for a while is them trying to capitalize on their name and their ability to sell right now. So they'll create a different product with a different label that's not their normal branded stuff to raise the price and get a bunch of quick money. That's the area I have a problem with. Like I said, like the prohibition stuff that Buffalo's doing, things like that. But I mean, it's just don't buy secondary. Like, get to know your liquor store owner.
Well, that
There's
Well,
one.
will help solve the
There's
problem
one.
for sure.
yeah, and well, a lot of the yeah, I mean, I don't know if buying secondary is really the. I mean, that definitely adds to it, but just
Yeah, because the problem with secondary is, all right, well, one person finds out they can buy it for $50 and sell it for $500. Well, now everyone and their brother is going to buy that $50 bottle and sell it for 500. We see it
Mhm.
all the time. Like even when video game console releases come out, like the new Xbox, people could get one, and then all of a sudden they're selling on eBay for $2,000, right, Kyle? But yeah,
Oh my god, I can't believe you're throwing your friends under the bus.
I throw Kyle under the bus any day of the week. He deserves it. Oops, Jake, you just made a sale there. It sounded like
Whoops,
was
yep,
that
is a
Jake
sale.
buying
Let's
something?
see, was it Jake?
Mm-mm,
No, it was
No,
not.
no,
No,
Jake shaking his
Mm-mm.
head. Okay, all right.
Damn it! Come on, Jake.
no, I'm not on my phone tonight.
I don't know how you guys heard that. I got headphones in, and
I got.
it should have came
I
through
don't
my
know.
headphones, but whatever.
All right.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I think. Yeah, I'll throw it
Well,
in to wrap up. The moral of the story is don't get too caught in the hype, and uh, I truly recommend this time period that we're in before we kind of hit the bust or the boom, whatever you want to call it, with bourbon. Use this time to just explore what's out there, taste what's out there. I was just talking to another person today who was like, one of my friends is just getting into whiskey. He's got like a Taylor small batch he doesn't want to open because it's his coveted prized possession. And he's like,
yeah,
what should
get
I
over
try?
it.
What should I look for? And
we've all been there though.
well,
We've
yeah,
all
yeah,
been
yeah.
there.
But
Yeah,
I told him I was like, hey, like
the-
just go to a bar or just go to a whiskey tasting somewhere and just see what you like. Like I can't tell you what you should buy or what you should want. Like just go and find out what you like. And then once you find out a couple things you like, we can kind of work off of that and find out, all right, what's available you can walk in and buy. So it's a really good time to explore, taste, and learn about newer distilleries and craft distilleries, and just see what's out there, because we're going to hit a point, and it's going to be in the next 5 or 10 years at most, where half of the distilleries that are around now are going to be out of business because they just can't keep up with the big guys that just have so much bourbon and whiskey to sell. So this is a great time to just explore what's out there, what's available, and just expand your palate.
absolutely.
Well, speaking of scarcity, we had our Bloody Butcher release go out a couple
Yeah, tell
weeks
us how
ago by
that
this
went.
time. It went really well. I mean, we sold 400 bottles in 2.5 hours to the distillery. We'll have our blue popcorn release coming out the first week of December, December 1st. That should be hopefully hitting store shelves at that point, as well as being at the distillery. That's going to be less scarce this year, but not overly available. We're going to have double the amount what we had last year for that, but it's still going to be pretty scarce. What's even more scarce than that is tickets to the Whiskey Acres Masterclass at Gold Eagle, because those bad boys are sold out.
Sold out. And we
That
have a
is-
waiting list.
And there's a waiting list.
Mhm.
Like, so
Have you?
and-
What's the feedback on this? Is this because of Dan,
No,
or is it
I think
100%.
it's
the barrel pick release?
I think
it
it's
has nothing to do with the barrel pick release. The blue popcorn or Bloody Butcher we're taking is 100%
no,
me.
no.
No, it's 100% me.
It's-
Nothing else is going into factor on this. It is all me.
It's a combination.
That's all it is.
It's a combination. I think
But mostly not Dan.
we got a good
But mostly not me.
we got a
correct,
good local
yeah.
distillery. We got a good local distiller who's coming out to present. We're going to be tasting the full lineup, including the White Dog Rye. So we're going to taste the distillate on the
Oh,
rye
nice.
to kick things off, which I've never had for sure.
Inside
like-
information. It's our inside information. It's our new double distilled rye.
Ooh,
nice.
double distilled rye.
Cool.
And yeah, I mean the lineup is incredible. Local, we got a distiller coming out. So I think yeah, a combination of everything. But I usually sell a certain amount, expecting 3, 4 people usually to cancel on these events, and I've had nobody cancel so far. So we are like booked to the max. The room is going to be packed. I have like 10 people on a waiting list. So yeah, Whiskey Acres bringing the heat.
Yeah, and
And where
I'm gonna drop a coupon code here to do
Oh.
BM Dan, and Dan will buy you a drink.
That's hilarious.
I'll buy him a what?
A drink.
Yeah, I'm bringing White Dog. I will buy them a drink of White Dog that I bring. What other distilleries bring their White Dog with them to try? Like, we're going to be able to try the rye distillate, the rye at 3 years, and the rye at 4 years. It's a nice little journey through the product line, so you can see how stuff changes. How many people do that?
Nobody has
save
brought
your pitch for the actual thing. All right.
Thank you.
We might have.
Thank you.
We
All
might
right.
have to add another night. Maybe we should do back-to-back nights.
I'll have to check the work schedule for that one.
But I think we will need to add another Whiskey Acres masterclass for sure. I mean, the thing is,
I'll get someone better to do the next one. Don't worry.
Quick. No, they want you, Dan. We want you.
So you can't buy tickets to the current one, but if we do have another one, they'll be up. There are also some other good events that you can still get tickets for at not Whiskey Acres, at Gold Eagle. Sorry, I got my plug brain went to me plugging something for once, so I just stayed there.
I mean, you're welcome to plug Gold Eagle anytime you want. We'll take that in.
But no, where can they?
But yeah,
they can buy you. People,
Gold Eagle,
go ahead, Jake.
goldeaglewine.com. You can see our entire inventory. You can shop online. You can check out the upcoming events. And I am looking right now because sadly, but also it's a good thing, all of our upcoming events are sold out at this point.
Damn it.
Not
special.
Well,
no.
We don't have too many on the calendar right now just because of my surgery. I didn't want to overbook us and get me in trouble with my knee, but all the upcoming events are sold out. I do have a couple things in the works though to list before the end of the year, so keep a close eye on that events page because I'd imagine these few events that I'm going to list are going to fill pretty quick. But yeah, download our app on the Google Play or Apple App Store. You can get the same features from the website, and then definitely follow us on social media, Instagram at Gold Eagle Wine and Facebook at Gold Eagle Spirits. Keep up to date with day-to-day deliveries and everything Gold Eagle.
Jake, where can people find us at?
You can find us at Bourbon Matters on Instagram. You can watch us on YouTube and Spotify. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tune in next week because speaking of expanding your palate and trying new things and looking at craft distilleries, we're kicking off our Big Six series where we talk about the 6 biggest distilleries in the country. But yeah, so next week we're going to start with Buffalo Trace, of course, followed by Jim Beam, then Heaven Hill, Maker's Mark, Wild Turkey, and then finally Four Roses will be dropping, I believe, on Christmas Eve. And then we will do our whiskeys of the year. And then one of the things that we wanted to do, but we're going to give ourselves plenty of time, is a little bit of competition where the 3 of us are going to try and make our own blended whiskeys, and we'll see whose is the best. So they'll probably be dropping the first week of January. We still need to come up with the rules for that, but we'll announce that once we do.
There are no rules in blending.
There has to be some sort of rules around this.
or how about we challenge some listeners to like give us some stipulations or rules for that?
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then
yeah, so send in your rules, and then we'll compile a decent rule set to govern this
And
competition.
I think
How mad will you be, Jake, if someone says the rule is that you can't use Heaven Hill?
I'll be very upset.
That would be a dumb rule, and we would rule that out. But
yeah, it would be a dumb rule.
I think we also talked
I'm
about
definitely not leaving a comment right now.
we also talked about possibly making that like a Gold Eagle masterclass blind tasting type of thing. So if we do have enough
I think
interest,
that would be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun. So definitely chime in on that if you think you'd be interested in that. I think it'd be cool if we all created a blend and then had had like just a vote. So it's not just us, but other people tasting and rating and
ideally
picking the
we'd want to
favorite.
see a landslide victory in my favor.
As long as
so
it's
we
not
get
Dan,
get
doesn't
a
matter.
crowd there to vote. Yeah,
As long as
True,
Dan's in third place, it doesn't matter.
You realize I'm going to leverage all my assets, right? For
What,
this.
No,
you're gonna
that's
blend
why
Bloody
I
Butcher
want
and blue
rule
popcorn?
No, I got a master distiller that I can easily use for help. Like, I can taste this out in a distillery all the time. Like, that's not a problem.
Oh, all right.
You laugh, Jake, like you wouldn't try and cheat in a competition. When we did a bracket challenge, you threw in 2 heavily allocated things for your bracket challenge because you wanted to win.
There's no rules. You could submit whatever you wanted.
All right. Well,
All right,
guys.
Yeah. So lots of big stuff coming for the rest of the year. Whiskeys of the year will be fun too.
That'll be a lot of fun.
I believe I already have mine chosen. So
Mine as well.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So
I gotta do some homework then.
Unless something
Jake's got
comes
some
up that
thinking
really
to
blows
do.
me away, I have one that I've been really impressed with this year that I really like.
Same.
Do we
Well,
have to
I
just
actually
pick one,
had
or can we do
one.
like a top 3?
Would we do top 5 last year? I think
No, we did. We just
Okay.
picked one last year.
just one.
We
Let's
can do top 3. Each.
Yeah,
Top 3 would be cool.
top 3. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.